Hare Krishna, I'm sharing my screen. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं गुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगना रघुनाथं नुतं तं सजीवं साहदेतं साधुतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखावितांश हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्ते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा welcome to this discussion on Bhagavad Gita. I am just sharing my screen. So, in our previous discussion, we were there in the chapter number 2, and we have discussed the Sthita Pragna's sense engagement, Kim Rajeta part. We were there in the 69th sloka. Today, I expect to complete 69, 70, 71, and 72 uh, shlokas. 69 partially we have completed. I need to conclude that. Then 70, 71, 72. So the 72 is an interesting verse. This talks about the destination of a Sthita Prajna. So in going back to the Bhagavad Gita shloka, so here Prabhupada is talking about in the purport for this shloka 2.69, Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tashyam Jagati Samyam Yashyam Jagati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Muni. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about two intelligent men. One is materially intelligent and spiritually intelligent. We need not have to deny that materially inclined people are intelligent. If you see this entire web technology that we are using right now for discussion on scriptures, discussion on Krishna conscious topics, is so nice. So this is very sophisticated system, and this has enabled us for this discussion. But this intelligence is divorced from the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is that we are all eternal beings and we are of the eternal bliss. This material intelligence tries to make the temporary world better and better. Then the idea that then there is idea that they want to make this temporary world eternal. This is a foolish proposition. So we miss the full potential of human life, which is endeavor to go back home, back to God. That is why Srila Prabhupada calls these materialist people fools and rascals. Yes, this is true from the spiritual perspective. This is based on the ultimate futility of the intelligence. Though the outcome of material intelligence is laudable, but they are not focused on ultimate reality, which the ultimate reality is to become Krishna consciousness. Therefore, right now, what we are doing, we are trying to use the tools created by material intelligence to stop thinking towards material progress, but to go towards spiritual. So it is like using the wood to make an axe and cut the tree. So this is the technique that we are using. So this shloka is pointing to what? This shloka is pointing to different definition of enjoyment, which you get by controlling the senses. So if you see what is night for all beings is a time of awakening for self-control, and time of awakening for all beings is a night for an introspective sage. So this definition brings clarity to a serious devotees as well as to the newcomers. Serious devotees gain confidence on the process of devotional service, and newcomers come to understand what is wrong with their current actions and why they need to take to devotional service. So the sadhaka who is new to this movement moves from material definition of enjoyment to the spiritualist definition of enjoyment. So this is a very, very important shloka. Now going to shloka number 2.70. आपूर्यमाणम् अचलां प्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमाप प्रविश्यान्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविश्यान्ति सर्वे शशान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. A person who is not disturbed by incessant flow of desires. Apuryamanam achalam pradesha. He remains steady, steadily situated. That enters like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace. A person who is not disturbed by incessant flow of desires can alone achieve peace, and not a man who strives to satisfy such desire. So this we need to read, and then we have a metaphor. So this is a very common quoted shloka. If you see this entire shlokas from 2.54 to 2.72 is most practical section of Bhagavad Gita. For a sadhaka, it is good to memorize these shlokas. All these verses, and memorize all these shlokas and contemplate on them. In this verse, sadhaka can get wisdom from these verses. He can get wisdom, knowledge, and empowerment in his day-to-day activities. Get wisdom means how to control senses, how I will be able to divert my senses towards Krishna consciousness, what knowledge I need to give. And this knowledge and wisdom gives empowerment. Yeah, now I am very much convinced with Krishna conscious. I can conquer, I can spread Krishna conscious movement all over the world. Though it is positive, this is not a overconfidence, but it is empowerment in our day-to-day activities, and then lead a life according to Shastras. So here, one interesting word that is used is kama kami. Kama is desires, and kami is the desirer. So this shloka is pointing to desirer of desires. Normally, when we talk about a desirer of desires, we talk about desires going outwards. That means we see a beautiful object, visually we see a beautiful object, then our desire to look at it moves our from our eyes, from our mind through intelligent, it goes through the eyes to the object. So that is moving outwards. In this verse, Krishna actually talks about a metaphor where rivers are coming from all over all directions into inside the ocean. So this means Krishna is referring to the desires which are coming inwards. The right way to understand the desire, sense, and sense object based on this metaphor is that when sense come in contact with sense object, the sense object injects desire into us. So it is this desire which is injected inwards. Na kama kami means the person does not allow this desire to disturb him, or he does not entertain the specific desire that arises out of contact of a sense object and the senses. So if he sees a non-vegetarian food, there is a smell, there is also a vision, so that will that visual will pump or inject in the desire to taste it. But the sadhaka, who is very steady on Krishna conscious, will say no to that desire. So this is the idea here. Na kama kami means he will say, no, I will not focus on this desire. So ocean here refers to the extent of happiness. When there are desires which are coming like rivers and emptying into the ocean level does not change. Same way, a spiritualist and sadhaka is so happy internally that all the false happiness driven by contact of senses with the sense object do not disturb him at all. He remains steady. So when he sees a non-vegetarian food or alcohol, it does not inject a desire into his head. He says, I am happy in Krishna consciousness, in serving Krishna, in taking spiritualized food, which is Krishna Prasadam. This is what I want to have my nervous system fully focused on Krishna. I want my decision faculty to be 100% for Krishna. Therefore, I don't take a alcohol. So, like that, he remains steady. So, when we remember Krishna internally by our sadhana and our devotional activity, Krishna being ocean of happiness, we experience oceanic happiness within us. This oceanic, this oceanic is so fulfilling. This oceanic happiness is so fulfilling that we simply say no to false happiness driven by contact of senses and sense objects. That is why Krishna is Rishikesha. He satisfies our senses. If our happiness is like a puddle of water, then, if a small stream of water opens into it, it will simply flood the puddle and puddle will overflow. Same way, all materialists are always wanting to have happiness. They are not in touch with eternal happiness. Thus, when there is a small scope for happiness due to contact of sense and sense object, they simply say yes, whether it be a female association for a male, or it's a non-vegetarian food, or intoxicant, or something to smell. They just go for it. So a devotee through his sadhana invokes larger happiness in his heart due to his contact with Krishna. This contact touch with Krishna and remembrance of Krishna frees the devotee from mundane desires, temptation, agitation. These all arise from the contact of senses and the sense object. So when we are unable to fulfill the desire, then we get agitation, and when there is an agitation, there is more temptation. Then the desire burns. But when we are in touch with Krishna, we are protected from any such agitation, and this is delusion. Okay, so now the false attraction will flow into us, but our response to that will be strong no. That is why ocean does not get disturbed. It is not disturbed because it is happy. Same way, when the false attraction comes into us, we say no. This is because the strong and unbound happiness within us, which is protects us from falling prey to these desires. So Krishna says that such a person who is happy from inwards and says no to false happiness finds happiness and peace. So if you can see here, Tadvat kamaya pravishyanti sarve shashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Can alone achieve peace. Who is not disturbed. What he can do? He can alone achieve peace. And from this, and this is not for a person who is trying to satisfy the desires. So this is very well. So this is the sign for a peace. We should not get disturbed by material sense gratificatory thing. Krishna says that such person is Sashanti Mapnoti na Kamakam, not the person who is trying to fulfill his desires. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during rainy season, be filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limits of the brink. This is also true for a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. There is there is one interesting fruity workers, the salvationists, and also yogis who are after mystic power are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from so called material bondage. So, If you see so-called material bondage, we need to speak about this. So there is a shloka in Chaitanya Charitamrita 19.149. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakali Ashanta. Because a devotee of Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruity workers desire material enjoyment, jnanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. Prabhupada actually has paraphrased this in this purport here. So, this is so called material bondage. So, in Nectar of Devotion, there is one more shloka which says that Yasya Arer Dashe Karmana Manasagira Nikilasya Api Avastatu Jivan Mukta Sa Uchyate. So a person who is acting in service of Krishna with his body, mind, and words is liberated even in the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. So this material, so-called material activities or material bondage is taken from that shloka. So there are, what does it mean actually, so-called material bondage? So there are two types of muktas, namely Videha Mukta. This is when we leave the body, go to the spiritual world. This means without body. This is complete liberation. And second one is Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means one is still in the body, but while in the body, the person is not shaken up or down. This is so-called material bondage. He is just existing in the material world because he has this body, but he does not have any material bondage. So that is so-called material bondage. Now there is one more interesting shloka, 7.93. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Naivaduje paraduratya vaitaranyas tadvirya gayana mahamrta magna chitta soche tato vimukha chetasa indriyartha maya sukaya baram udvato vimudan. So what does this mean? Oh, best of the great personalities. I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. So Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Lord Nashima. My concern is only for the fools and rascals for making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. So, this is so called bondage. So, I'm simply concerned with love for them. This is so called material bondage. So, see, this purport is very nice. Then there is one more thing. That is the proof of Krishna consciousness, one who has lost all inclination for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. So desires will be there, but he does not enjoy, he doesn't kindle activities to fulfill them. So this is also a very interesting point which Prabhupada is making. Okay, I go to sloka number 2.71. Vihaya kaman yes sarva pumams charati nishpraha nirmamo nirahankara shashanti atigachati. Charati, a person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desire, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego. He alone can attain peace. So this talks about charity. How does Kim Brajeta, Krishna is answering the question, Kim Brajeta. How does the person move around? This is answer to the question, Kim Brajeta. So first, one has to give up all desires for sense gratification. So this is the first point. Then he should be combined with sense, given up all sense of proprietorship, and he must be devoid of all false ego. So this is the formula for peace. The understanding of the sadhaka is that I am soul. I am here to engage in devotional service without any false ego and proprietorship, only for satisfaction of Vaishnavas and Krishna. This mood gives him real happiness and real peace. This is the gist of the shloka. This verse is continuation of the thought from the previous verse. The previous verse focuses on person who is fully satisfied by the oceanic happiness derived from devotional service. Hence, the thought of material sense gratification, which are like rivers flowing into the ocean, do not disturb him. This is talking about internal consciousness of the person. That means the previous verse is talking about the internal consciousness of the person. This verse talks about how the person walks around the world, that is charity. He walks without any desire for false proprietorship and material desire, with only focus and aim of serving the Lord and his devotees. So the state of mind of this person is that is this person is that full of happiness, and the person is at peace. The tendency to own something in the world and all the material desires make us very unstable and disturbed. Thus, there is no peace and happiness. So only when there is why we are unhappy, no peace, because we have desires and we are trying to fulfill the desires. So when we do not have any inclination to fulfill the desires, then we do not have any ownership or false ego, and then we can remain happy. However, we have devotional desires. So if you see Chaitanya Charitamrita 20.47, आश्लिष्य वा पादरतां पिनष्टु माम् अदर्शनान् मर्म तां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो matprananadastu saheva napara. We have devotional desire, and the desire is to serve Krishna. We will still be unhappy. So here we can see the translation. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maid servant who has fallen at his lotus feet, or let him trample me or break my heart by never being visible to me. So there is nothing, no happiness being uh, described here. He is a debauchee after all and can do whatever he likes. This is about Krishna, but still he alone and no one else is the worshipable Lord of my heart. So this is the mood of the devotee. So desire to serve only Krishna. This means even if there is a pressure and stress in our devotional service, that only increases and intensifies our remembrance of Krishna. And this brings perfection to our life. This makes us truly happy. Our goal is the remembrance of Krishna at all time. Hence, the desire which increases our remembrance of Krishna are very, very auspicious. Thus, remembrance of Krishna takes us to supreme peace. This peace is based on our understanding that Krishna is always there with me and I am always connected with Krishna. So there are two types of peace of mind, which is material and other one is spiritual peace. Material peace means the peace of mind they call peace with no anxieties, no fears, no worries. The entire effort by different countries to have United Nations and so on, no war, no make love, no war like that. These are all to bring peace in the world. These are all material peace. But spiritual peace is based on devotional service, where we know that the relationship with Krishna is eternal, it is everlasting. What activity I do will nourish and strengthen this relationship. This is what we always look for. So, any opportunity or any activity which will strengthen or nourish this relationship, we get attracted to it and we want to do this. This is because this is peaceful and this brings peaceful and it is so robust that nothing can break because our focus is not being happy but to satisfy Krishna. The Shanti referred here is peace from devotional service. Material desire is peripheral to the soul. We are all spirit souls. So spiritual desires are central to the soul. These desires take us to Krishna. The spiritual desires take us to Krishna. This will deepen and strengthen our relationship with Krishna. This brings supreme happiness. That is why we embrace devotional service. Even if there are problems in devotional service, at some point of time, we start liking it because it gives happiness to us. The entire Bhagavad Gita is now focusing on detachment from material or detachment from negative things. As the Bhagavad Gita thought flows, there will be attachment to positive. Krishna has not brought him as a center till now. There is one shloka which was there, but now more of that occurrence has to come. That is how the Bhagavad Gita flow happens. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport is talking about the to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna consciousness is actually desirelessness. This desirelessness talked about here is our nature. Like liquidity is nature of water. Same way to become Krishna consciousness is the nature of soul. Every devotee will have different aspirations to serve Krishna. This service to Krishna is intrinsic nature of the soul. So, like taste is the um, intrinsic quality of water, or chillness is the intrinsic quality of water. Like that, service to Krishna is the intrinsic nature of the soul. So, Krishna is telling Arjuna, fight with such detachment, then you will not be bound by karma. So, this is very nice. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavashyam idam sarvam. Therefore, he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. Then, knowing perfectly well that every living entity is eternal part and parcel of Krishna is the spirit in spiritual identity, and that the eternal portion of divinity is therefore never on level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is basic principle of real peace. So this is very, very nice. So with this shloka, Krishna ends Sthita Prajna sense enjoyment. So no false proprietorship, no ownership, no false ego, and desire to serve Krishna. That is the focus of Sthita Prajna. Now, when we do this, what happens? Sthita Prajna, what is the destination of Sthita Prajna? That is what we will see now in the next shloka. एषा ब्रह्मी स्थिति पार्थ नैनं प्रापे विमूयति स्थितवश्यम् अन्तकाले अपि ब्रह्म निर्वाणं रच्यति. That is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So, Esha here refers to Shanti stage, which is described in previous two verses. So, what is the Shanti? No false ego, no false proprietorship, uh, always trying to remain focused on Krishna consciousness and not get disturbed by external sense object. So, these are the major points which Esha means. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Now, when we attain this stage, there are two outcomes. What is that? There is no bewilderment and it results in liberation. After attaining which, there is no bewilderment and we will enter into the kingdom of God. So, this is liberation. So, when we reach this stage, that these are the two outcomes. In this shloka, there is one important word which is antakale. So, you may see antakale. A devotee wants to remember Krishna at the time of death. In Bhagavad Gita, for the first time, there is mention of this Antakali. There is an emphasis of special consciousness at the time of death. The method to cultivate this mindset at the time of death is quite emphatically described in 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called as Attaining the Supreme. So this talks about the this specifically talks about what we need to do at the time of death. So at the end of seventh chapter, no, Arjuna is asking a question. Um, Krishna concludes that Sadi Bhutam, Sadi Daivam Ma, Sadi Yagnam Chaye Vidu, Prayana Kale Chapima, Te Vidur Yukta Chetasa. Let us see that shloka. It is very nice. Sadi Bhutam, Sadi Daivam Ma, Sadi Yagnam Chaye Vidu, Prayana Kale Apichama, te vidur yukta chetasa. Those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of material manifestation of the demigods and all methods of sacrifice, can understand me and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So this is how seventh chapter ends. So in continuation, Arjuna inquires, "Oh my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is self? And and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?" So this is very, very important. So if you see fundamentally, there are, I think, eight questions. In this eight questions, seven questions are already answered in these two shlokas, third and fourth. Remaining 24 shlokas, there are 28 shlokas in this chapter. Remaining 24 shlokas speak only about attaining the supreme, which is the title. How at the time of death one can remember Krishna. So, so there are eight questions. Seven, I think, is answered in these two verses, third and fourth. The remaining eight are answered in the uh, rest of the shloka. So there is a mention of Antakale here. So Bhagavad Gita is that is specifically second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is contents of Gita summarized. So it talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga, then sthita prajna, nature of soul, nature of body, and then there is also mention of death. So that is why it is called as contents of Gita summarized, which is this shloka specifically is like a concise shloka, no, concise version of the eighth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the other important word we need to understand is Brahmi. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Part. What is Brahmi Sthiti? This word is very, very significant. We know word Brahman. Brahman in English we have two genders, which is masculine gender and feminine gender, like he and she respectively. But in case of Sanskrit, we have one more gender called as neuter gender. So Brahman is a neuter gender. So this is used appropriately to describe many objects in Sanskrit language. In Srila Jiva Goswami's Ari Namamrita Vyakaran, he gives Sanskrit names for various concepts and schemes, and the name suggests, so he is giving Krishna's name. He gives Krishna's name for different structures, schemes within the Sanskrit language. So Ari Namamrita means the nectar of the holy name. Vyakaran means grammar. So that means what? Grammar associated or grammar based on the holy name of the Lord. So, Sri Jiva Goswami devotionalizes the grammar and uses the rule accordingly. So, he has given the name for genders also. For example, masculine gender, he called it as Narayana Linga. Feminine gender, he calls it as Lakshmi Linga. And the neuter gender, he calls it as Brahma Linga. So here Krishna is using the word Brahmi Sthiti. Brahmi Sthiti means Brahmi is a feminine gender. Thus Brahmi Sthiti refers to feminine gender. So this can be an hint towards Radharani. She is ultimate mediatrix by which we can attain to Krishna. She is the one who gives bhakti. When we are situated under the shelter of Radharani and execute devotional service, we will never get deluded or bewildered. There is one more shloka where this is used. Mahatmanastu mampartha daivim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manasa jnatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under protection of my divine nature or protection of the divine nature. So this is referring to uh, so 2.72 and 9.13 are two verses where Krishna is indirectly referring to Srimati Radharani. Srila Prabhupada also refers to Radharani only once in the entire of Bhagavad Gita, and that is in the invocation Tapta Kanchana Gauragi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrashavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. So the topics of Radharani are all exalted topics. Srila Prabhupada gives the basics of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and his main focus is to give fundamentals of spirituality which could be circulated to people in general. This is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So even a person with a philosophical intent, when he starts reading Bhagavad Gita, he will get benefited and he gets the fundamentals of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the position where we can reach, if we reach by devotional service, there is no fallback. So 2.72 is talking about the stage where we reach Nainam Prape Vimuyati. We will never get bewildered. So this is very interesting. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once within a second, or may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. So it is a very good point here. If he, then he says that it is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Acceptance that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead is very, very difficult. So Katwang Maharaj attained this state of life just a few minutes before his death by surrendering to Krishna. So we need to understand this. Nirvana means ending process of materialistic life. So Prabhupada is talking about Buddhist philosophy. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada's purports are very extraordinary in Bhagavad Gita. His strategy in Bhagavad Gita is very, very deeply thought. The name Bhagavad Gita, as it is itself, is a deeply thought title. So, what does Srila Prabhupada do? Srila Prabhupada is giving a systematic understanding of various concepts and the understanding of the conclusions of the concept very clearly. This means the conclusions of bhakti remains consistently in forefront of our consciousness. So if we read second chapter or third chapter or fourth chapter, Prabhupada clearly brings out bhakti is supreme everywhere. So Bhagavad Gita offers various concepts. So Srila Prabhupada explains these concepts in his purports with its relationship with the conclusive message of Scripture. The conclusive message of Scripture is is bhakti. This Srila Prabhupada ensured that is never lost from our vision when we read Bhagavad Gita. This is speciality of Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is what Narada emphasizes Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is devotional scripture. Though Vyasadeva compiled so many scriptures, but bhakti as the supermost is not brought out in the scriptures which he has already compiled. Only in Srimad Bhagavatam there is focus of bhakti and there is focus of Krishna, Krishna's devotees. Same way, Srila Prabhupada has ensured that bhakti is there in every purport. So there is this vision of bhakti will never be lost if we are reading Srila Prabhupada's report. This is the most important message that stays with us and helps us to enable move in our devotional life. In conclusion of the second chapter, Krishna explains how one can be sthita prajna and how one can attain liberation. So this is the most important conclusion. So if you see the entire flow of Bhagavad Gita, so first to 10 shlokas majorly focused on Arjuna's doubts and surrender. Arjuna had a doubt whether he has to fight or not fight, how he can fight with his elders. So then Krishna gives him the entire knowledge about soul and soul's indestructible position. So this is very, very important. So why we need to worry about the death? So this is referring to the this is referring to compassion for the body because Arjuna's first argument was compassion for his relatives. Compassion for body is useless and because death is inevitable and soul is indestructible. So why we need to worry about compassion for the body? Then enjoyment. Arjuna's second point was enjoyment. If he is going to kill all his relatives, then where is the question of sharing the sweet of success? So he was thinking that he will not be able to enjoy. But Krishna emphasized that only by fighting a Kshatriya will get real enjoyment. Either he will win the prosperous kingdom or he will go enjoy a prosperous life in heavenly planets. So for him, the enjoyment is only in fighting. Even for his relatives, if they are killed in war, they are going to get elevated to higher planets. In presence of Krishna, if they are killed, they go to Vaikuntha. And hence, fighting is the best business here. Then comes sinful reaction. Arjuna had a doubt. By killing his relatives, he will get sinful reaction. But then Krishna is telling, don't get attached to the fruits of results, fruits of um, fighting a war. Surrender the fruits. Work with only the motive. Don't go behind the fruits. You are just an instrument. There are many causes beyond you which is causing this war. Therefore, just fight for sake of duty. Don't get attached to results. So when it comes to know, so this here Krishna talks about fixing consciousness. How a person fixed in consciousness engages everything for bhakti and doesn't get attached to fruits. When Krishna talks about that, Arjuna gets a question: how does a person which who has uh, fixed his consciousness, how does he speak? Ka bhasha, kim prabhashet, kim aset, kim rajeta. Like that, he gives different questions. So Krishna then answers them in a very practical way. So sadhakas needs to focus on 54 to 71. These are all very, very important shlokas. Okay, I stop here. With this, we end the second chapter. So next week we'll start the third chapter for our discussions. Hare Krishna. Let us now uh, have some question answer sessions. Any questions from you, Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna. Prabhu, any questions? You are in mute. Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll close the session here. Thank you very much for joining. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhayascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. ग्रंथराज भगवद गीता की जय।
Jai,
जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत
Jai,
कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Jai.
गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल
Hari
हरि।
Hari Bol.
थैंक यू वेरी
Hare
मच।
Krishna. Thank you so
हरे
much.
कृष्णा।